Start step-by-step talking. Leo sat alone, a textbook open before him, yet his mind wandered. He yearned to speak English fluently, to express complex thoughts without hesitation. Every attempt felt like a tangled mess of words, a frustrating performance rather than a conversation. He often wondered, why do I always make mistakes? This self-doubt gnawed at his confidence daily, hindering any progress he hoped to make. The silence in his room mirrored the emptiness he felt inside when trying to articulate simple sentences. He'd memorized countless vocabulary lists, studied grammar rules meticulously, but putting it all together felt impossible. His tongue felt heavy, his brain slow, as if a barrier stood between his thoughts and actual spoken English. It was a common struggle, yet incredibly isolating for him. He dreamed of engaging in lively discussions, understanding British humor, and perhaps even traveling the world with ease. But the reality was a stuttered hello and an embarrassed retreat. He knew many others faced similar hurdles. There had to be a best way to learn English, a secret formula beyond just rote memorization. He just hadn't found it yet. One evening, scrolling through online forums, a phrase caught his eye. Start step-by-step talking. It wasn't about perfection. It was about beginning, however small. This simple idea sparked a tiny flicker of hope within him. Perhaps his previous approach was fundamentally flawed. He decided right then to seek new strategies. He dove deeper, looking for practical talking tips. Not just grammar exercises, but actionable advice on how to genuinely communicate. He stumbled upon an online community focused on English language learners, a place where people shared their frustrations and, more importantly, their successes. This felt different, more promising than anything before. Among the shared stories, one particular user, known only as the Fluent Friend, resonated deeply. Their posts weren't about flawless grammar but about connection, about finding joy in conversation. Let me tell you talking tips. One post began, promising a very interesting story of transformation. Leo felt an immediate pull. The first tip from the Fluent Friend was surprisingly simple. Listen and practice. Not just passive listening but active engagement. Listen to native speakers' podcasts, interviews. Immerse yourself in the rhythm and intonation. This sounded obvious, yet Leo realized he'd always prioritized speaking over truly absorbing. He started with British English podcasts, focusing on everyday conversations rather than complex lectures. He noticed how speakers paused, how they emphasized certain words, the natural flow. He wasn't just hearing words, he was absorbing patterns. This was the first step in understanding how to talk in English authentically. After listening, he tried to mimic phrases and sentences, paying close attention to pronunciation and stress. It felt awkward initially, like a child learning to speak, but he persisted. This English talking practice was challenging, but he could feel tiny improvements each day. It was about building muscle memory for his mouth. He still made mistakes, of course. Lots of them. But the Fluent Friend addressed this directly. Why I always make mistakes? Because you're trying. Mistakes are proof of effort. This reframing was revolutionary for Leo. It shifted his perspective from failure to a valuable learning opportunity. The next piece of advice focused on conversational flow over perfect accuracy. Don't stop to correct every grammar error in your head, advised the online mentor. Keep talking. The goal is communication, not a flawless academic presentation. Fluency will follow, perfection can wait. This relieved immense pressure. Then came a specific recommendation. Let's talk in British English. For Leo, who admired the accent and often consumed British media, this resonated. Focusing on one major accent style would provide consistency in pronunciation and vocabulary, making how to learn words more targeted and effective. The advice for how to learn words moved beyond flashcards. Don't just memorize definitions, suggested the fluent friend. Learn words in context. See how they're used in sentences and conversations. Understand their nuances and connotations. This makes them truly stick. Leo began building contextual word banks. He created a system where he would actively try to use 3 new words each day in his internal monologues or simple self-conversations. This conscious effort transformed passive knowledge into active vocabulary. It was a tangible, step-by-step approach to expanding his linguistic toolkit significantly. He started connecting new English words to his daily life. If he learned serendipity, he'd think about a serendipitous moment he experienced. If he learned ubiquitous, he'd identify ubiquitous objects around him. This made the words personal, meaningful, and unforgettable. This was true immersion. More listen and practice evolved. He found British radio dramas, podcasts on topics he genuinely enjoyed, and even children's stories for simpler language exposure. He wasn't just learning English. He was exploring a culture, which made the process much more engaging and less like tedious study. A powerful English talking practice technique introduced was shadowing. He would listen to a short audio clip and then immediately try to repeat it, speaking along with the original speaker, mimicking their pace, intonation, and rhythm. It felt like learning to sing but with words. The more he practiced, even alone, the more his confidence slowly grew. He realized that the barrier wasn't his intelligence but his fear. The best way to learn English, he mused, is not just about acquiring knowledge, but about bravely applying it repeatedly. Action breeds confidence. He cautiously ventured into online English conversation groups, specifically those with British English speakers. His initial interactions were nerve-wracking. He worried about his accent, his grammar, his inevitable mistakes. But the friendly atmosphere of these communities surprised him profoundly. These groups provided invaluable English talking practice in a real-time, low-stakes environment. People understood that everyone was learning. This supportive setting allowed him to experiment with new vocabulary and sentence structures without the crushing fear of judgment he'd always carried. He even started welcoming corrections, viewing them not as criticisms but as helpful feedback. When someone gently corrected his pronunciation or grammar, he'd make a mental note, repeating the correct form to himself. "Why I always make mistakes" became "How can I learn from this mistake?" He began paying particular attention to sounds unique to British English, like the R sound often softened or dropped at the end of words, or the distinct A sound in bath or grass. This granular focus improved his how to talk in English significantly, sounding more natural. Learning how to learn words extended to idioms and common British slang. Phrases like taking the mickey or gutted gave his conversations a more authentic feel. He learned them not from lists, but by hearing them in context during his listen and practice sessions and online talks. Consistency was paramount. He dedicated at least 30 minutes every day to English talking practice, even if it was just talking to himself in the mirror. He understood that small, regular efforts compound over time, leading to significant, lasting improvement in his fluency. He stopped chasing unattainable perfection. The goal shifted from speaking flawlessly to speaking effectively and comfortably. This mental shift was perhaps the most crucial talking tip he absorbed. It freed him from self-imposed linguistic paralysis, allowing words to flow more freely. He started practicing telling short stories about his day or simple anecdotes in English. This forced him to structure his thoughts, connect sentences, and use descriptive vocabulary. This very interesting story exercise improved his narrative skills and overall coherence in spoken English. When alone, he'd conduct imaginary conversations with native speakers, mentally rehearsing responses to various scenarios. How to talk in English wasn't just about real interactions. It was also about preparing his mind for them. This mental rehearsal was surprisingly effective. Another powerful talking tip was to record himself speaking and then listen back. Initially, it was cringeworthy. He'd hear every hesitation, every mispronunciation. But this self-critique was essential for identifying specific areas for improvement in his English talking practice. He started celebrating small victories, successfully ordering coffee in English, understanding a complex news report, or holding a 5-minute conversation without major stumbles. These small wins provided much-needed motivation and proof that step-by-step talking truly worked. His decision to talk in British English also led him to explore British culture more deeply through films, TV shows, and books. This cultural immersion enriched his vocabulary and gave him deeper insights into the nuances of the language, making it feel less like a foreign code. The journey, once filled with dread, slowly transformed into a source of genuine joy. Learning English became an adventure, not a chore. He discovered that the best way to learn English was to make it enjoyable, to connect it to his passions and interests. His listen and practice sessions helped him adapt to the natural speed of native speakers. Initially, they seemed to speak incredibly fast. But with consistent exposure, his brain began to process the sounds and meanings more quickly, reducing the mental effort required. He realized how to learn words wasn't about cramming, but about organic growth. Every new word he encountered in context felt like a natural addition to his personal lexicon, rather than an isolated item to be memorized for a test. This felt much more sustainable. Grammar, which once seemed abstract, started making more sense in application. By focusing on how to talk in English, he unconsciously absorbed correct grammatical structures simply by hearing and using them repeatedly in context, rather than just from rulebooks. The biggest hurdle, why I always make mistakes, gradually dissipated. He understood that native speakers rarely judge non-native speakers for errors. They appreciate the effort. This realization was a profound psychological shift, freeing him to simply speak. He embraced his developing British English accent, understanding it wasn't about sounding exactly like a native, but about being clearly understood. His unique accent became part of his identity as a multilingual speaker, a testament to his journey. He actively sought feedback, not just from online groups but also from British friends he made. This continuous feedback loop was crucial for refining his English talking practice and identifying persistent errors he might not notice himself. Repetition, particularly in speaking, proved incredibly powerful. Saying the same phrases, practicing common dialogue patterns repeatedly, solidified them in his mind and on his tongue. This consistent vocalization improved muscle memory significantly. As his confidence grew, he started venturing into discussing more complex topics. From daily routines, he moved to current events, hobbies, and even abstract ideas. This expanded the range of his how to talk in English ability exponentially. He developed a better ability to self-correct during conversations. If he made a mistake, he could often recognize it himself and rephrase his sentence more accurately without breaking the flow too much. This was a mark of growing fluency. He concluded that there was no single best way to learn English. Rather, it was a combination of consistent effort, active listening, fearless practice, targeted vocabulary acquisition, and embracing mistakes as part of the journey. Patience became his greatest ally. He understood that fluency wouldn't happen overnight. It was a marathon, not a sprint. Each small step, each new word, each successful conversation contributed to the overall progress of his very interesting story. The ultimate reward wasn't just speaking English, but the ability to connect with people from different backgrounds, to share ideas, and to understand diverse perspectives. Communication became the true joy, transcending mere language acquisition. His personal journey became a very interesting story in itself, a testament to what dedication and smart strategies could achieve. He often shared his experiences, hoping to inspire others who felt stuck, just as he once did. He even started contributing his own talking tips to the online community, drawing from his personal experiences with why I always make mistakes and how to talk in English effectively. He was now helping others on their path. He stressed that mindset was crucial. Approaching learning with curiosity, resilience, and a willingness to embrace imperfection was key. It was more about self-belief than inherent talent. He became an active participant, not just a passive learner. He engaged in discussions, asked questions, and sought opportunities to use English in every possible scenario, making it an integral part of his daily life. From the quiet frustration of why I always make mistakes, Leo had journeyed to the confident ease of let's talk in British English. His transformation was a powerful example of what consistent English talking practice could achieve. He knew learning was a continuous process. There would always be new words to learn, new nuances to discover. But now he approached it with excitement, armed with proven strategies for how to learn words and listen and practice. The best way to learn English, he now understood, was the integrated approach. Listen, imitate, speak, make mistakes, learn from them, and repeat. It wasn't a secret, but a disciplined and enjoyable methodology. He no longer saw himself as someone struggling with English, but as a confident English speaker. This new identity was forged through countless hours of step-by-step talking, an unwavering commitment to his goal. His very interesting story became an inspiration. He often told it, emphasizing the specific talking tips that genuinely transformed his learning curve, particularly the importance of consistent English talking practice. His choice to talk in British English had given his journey a unique focus, allowing him to delve deep into a specific linguistic and cultural sphere, which he found incredibly rewarding and immersive. True immersion, he realized, wasn't just about living abroad, but about creating an English environment wherever you are, through conscious listen and practice, and actively seeking opportunities to how to talk in English. Leo's journey from silent struggle to articulate conversation was a testament. He had found his voice, not perfectly but powerfully. He was proof that anyone can truly master English step by meticulous step.